no job, no income. My wife's now alone again, and I'm in a spot where I'm just like, why am I here?
What was it that eventually had you take that step back and go, all right, yeah, this isn't going to work?
I was working at Boeing. I get a call from my boss, and it was like, hey, we're going to put you on administrative leave. You failed a background check. Like, just let you know, you have a felony warrant out for your arrest. Instantly, I was like, DUI. Long story short, I end up hitting a plea deal that mandated like 4 months in incarceration. So now no job, no income. My wife's now alone again, and I'm in a spot where I'm just like, why am I here? For lack of better words, I shouldn't have been from where I was at in my life. Like, I shouldn't be there. And I kind of had that mentality at first. And I was like, no, like, you deserve to be here. Like, you fucked up. 4 months to stare at the ceiling and like figure out like what I want in life. Like, how can I take that plan that I wanted and switch it back over to the real world? Like, how can I start, like, leap from the day I get out of this hellhole? And so that was the time that I kind of sat back and was like, you know what? I'm going to try as hard as I can to make people better, ultimately making me better. And I firmly believe when I'm my best, I can help my wife be her best. I can help my kids be her best. Everyone around me can be at their best because it's infectious.
Today's guest is Jason Harris. Jason is the owner of Anarchy Fitness. He also used to be a U.S. Marine. This conversation today was absolutely incredible because I don't think people often expect Marines to be so open when it comes to expressing their emotions. Certainly, I didn't think that, and I was proven wrong today. Jason is an absolutely incredible individual that shows the side that people don't often see, but maybe also aren't aware of when it comes to the Marines and the camaraderie and the lessons learned and really just all the incredibly beautiful things the Marines has to offer. So this was an eye-opener for me today, and I'm sure it will be for you all as well. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Jason Harris, welcome to Beyond the Cover.
Thanks for having me.
I'm super excited about this podcast today. This discussion in general, to me, we had an awesome conversation on the phone. I almost wish that was recorded. I will say this. I have a lot of respect for you. I think when you're somebody that was in the Marines, and we'll dive into that, I think from an outsider's perspective, there's this belief that, I mean, that is like, these guys are the toughest, and they are. I do think this. They're the toughest of the toughest. I mean, they can take any type of physical, emotional duress, and they're created in a way where it's like they are absolute freaks of nature. I mean, the things that they can subject themselves to, they're just, most humans could never do what they do. And I believe that wholeheartedly. I was shocked when we had our conversation about how open you are with talking about your emotions. I think it's incredible. And I want to just say out the gate, I commend you for that. It certainly surprised me because I always thought that these guys, I mean, were, it was probably something that they harbored within. And if anyone was going to harbor it within, it was them, hey. And I grew up in an environment as a man where I was told, emotions, just hold them within. You're a man. If you feel a certain type of way, go hit somebody, whether that's on the football field or whether it's outside of the football field, fight it out. Men don't show emotion. So I'm really, really excited to have this conversation with you because I think it'll be surprising and refreshing to people to see the depth that you really do have. And I think a lot of that stems from what you've been through. So quickly, you are the owner of Anarchy Fitness.
I am.
And what I loved about it was you said that the purpose behind that was to basically be able to train individuals to be able to handle adversity, similar to in a way that that you were trained in the Marines. You wanted to give people that resiliency so they can take on anything in life. And so you've taken your experience in the Marines to the gym, which is absolutely incredible to see that passion really marriage together. And so now you're providing that for other people. But I want to really first touch on the mental aspect of the Marines. You mentioned something on the conversation on the phone call that I found to be very fascinating. And maybe I was looking too much into it, but I feel like there's something more there that would be worthy of discussing. You stated that in the Marines, there were two emotions, happiness and anger. Is that by design with the Marines? Do they basically kind of teach individuals to just feel those two emotions? Or was that more personal? Was that what you decided to kind of express as you went through that experience?
I would say originally you would think that's by design. Boot camp is like purposely intended to be broke up into 3 phases.
Okay.
Like phase 1 is to belittle you down to nothing. Like you're not a person. Like you're not a human being. You're like the bottom of the barrel.
Okay.
That second phase, they start teaching you and training you, and you start learning some things that like, hey, I can do this. Hey, I have succeeded in these hikes, and I've succeeded in passing all of these entry-level tasks.
Mm-hmm.
And then that third phase, when they try to build you back up and be like, hey, you were nothing. You learned all of this, and now you're a freaking United States Marine. Like they're called the few and the proud for a reason. It's the smallest organization. It's mainly a war fighting organization. It's like now they are giving you this ego that like, hey, you did this.
Yeah.
It's the longest boot camp by far. I think it's 13 weeks, at least when we went through. I think the next longest is like 7 or 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And so like they put you up on this pedestal now. And it's like, now you've earned the title. Now you need to like take that to the next level and continue on.
Yeah.
But through that training, like there is no signs of weakness. Like you smile, you're in the wrong. You cry, you're in the wrong. So like once you started to develop like, oh, this is although you're doing physical acts, this isn't physical. This is all mental.
Yeah.
And I would relate it to almost any like elite level or competitive level sports. Like when you're in the game, nothing else matters. Like your sadness, your superficial feelings, your anger, like nothing else matter. It's you have one mission, and that's to succeed.
Yeah.
That's how the Marine Corps is, except for that game is every day. It's no matter what. It's when you wake up in the morning, game time. When you go to bed at night, it's still game time.
Yeah.
So you really kind of like dissect into 2 options. One is when you're really happy and you're doing things really well, and that's all there is. And then you have a switch that takes you to the anger side when things aren't going well, or, a lot of times on deployment, you lose people. That automatically kicks into a different instinctual feeling that you don't really have time to be sad or confused or curious. It's like, hey, it's one or the other.
Yeah.
And the more and more I trained and the longer I stayed in the Marine Corps and the more deployments I did, I think as I looked at other like good leaders and successful Marines in terms of like the infantry community, that's actually a choice. Like we chose to do that so we could separate ourselves from like humanism. So we didn't have a weakness when, God forbid, we were put up against a greater force or get put up against evil, right?
Yeah.
Like we always look, hey, good versus evil, good's going to conquer evil. But in reality, we're evil too. We're just sent to go play with the devil, and we're the people that put the devil on the ground. And so we have to be able to go from that really happy, go lucky person to putting our game face on and be really good people, but doing bad things for the sake of, our mission or humanity or whatever that case is.
Yeah.
So I think it ends up being by choice. And I've noticed that's definitely the hardest thing when exiting the service is relinquishing that choice. And then like understanding like, no, hey, I can be normal again.
Yeah. Wow. You explained that so perfectly, because there was questions that were coming up and you were just answering them all. I mean, by choice, but a little bit possibly by design too, because we're talking life or death. And so again, me, someone that's ignorant to that whole training aspect, but I would understand it as, you really can't be in your head having these thoughts and all of a sudden, combat, occurs because, a lot of outsiders, we see movies where the music starts playing, it's eerie, there's cloud coverage, it starts to rain, it gets silent, and then boom, 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 gunfight. And I'll never forget, I was watching some video where it was like middle of the day, these guys are just walking down the street and there's shots fired. And it's like, wait, whoa, where's the clouds? Where's the eerie music, right? Like, and so I think there's part of it where, again, like they're training you that way because it's life or death. and you know, to sit in your thoughts and start contemplating life and dissecting your emotions. When you have a task to go to carry out, that's probably only going to be destructive in that realm, and not only harm you, but harm the people around you, where it's like you guys are a team and you can't have somebody weak, you know, being the weak link, because now that potentially puts you guys all in a vulnerable spot. So you just helped me understand that. And I think that's again, you explained that so perfectly. I want to go back. You mentioned the 3 phases of the training. Why do they belittle you? What's the purpose that you believe is behind that?
So, and I've never been a drill instructor, so I've never like took people straight off the streets. But my last 3 years, I was a combat instructor. So if you decided you wanted to be a Marine and be in the infantry, I saw you at the early phases.
Okay.
So think about this for yourself. Example, I don't know your early upbringing, but hey, you're super athletic. You're great at sports. Or like a Pat Tillman figure. Like he had all these accolades as a civilian. Mm-hmm. They want to pretty much say, hey, we don't care about that. Like, cool story, bro. Next, like you're on the same playing field as Joe Smo that just graduated his 30th hour on Call of Duty. Like it doesn't matter. Like you are all the same. And by the same, it means you are nothing. You've earned nothing. And that's the Marine Corps does a really good job of being like, hey, like nothing is given. Like you only are going to get this by earning it. Yeah. And it might be something so small, but you earn lunch. Okay. Once you get through lunch, okay, you earn to be able to have a bathroom break. Like you can't just go in the bathroom on your own. You have to earn the right to be able to go do those things. And unfortunately, that's why we see like a lot of grown men peeing themselves in boot camp and stuff like that. It's like they're so nervous and so scared because they've literally been broken down to nothing. Yeah. To pretty much stripped of their manhood, to then being okay. I don't know anything. I'm back at square one. All 300 of us that are living in this little squad bay warehouse are all on the same playing field. And then we start learning things, and they start signing out like small little leadership details, and you start to like grow in that confidence boost. And it's like, cool. Now that all that time I spent playing football or martial arts when I was a kid, now I can start to use that now that I'm starting to become somebody. Yeah. And it's 100% brainwashing. It's through and through, which I agree with, to keep in mind, because you hit it. It's life or death. Yeah. We need to know, like, no question about it, that my brother to my right and to my left, regardless of what happens on the battlefield, is going to like be there to help me. Yeah. And the Marine Corps is probably the largest brotherhood, the largest team sport that you can ever play. Yeah. And we can't afford to not have one of our brothers to be on the same playing field. Yeah. So they want to weed out those people. Yeah. Like most people quit in phase 1. Mm-hmm. You're just like, what do you mean I'm nothing? And then it can continue to get battered down. And eventually a lot of people quit. Yeah. And it's not easy to quit, but if you really don't want to be there, like they will grant that at some point.
You mentioned that. Yeah. I mean, it can be a bit of brainwashing, but I think what I pick up on is, and you mentioned on the 3rd phase of the training, is they build up your ego. It almost sounds like phase 1 is ego death. Like they basically to say, I don't care what you've done, what you're coming in with, I'm breaking all that down so that, again, we're all at a level playing field. You might have been the D1 athlete. You might have had all this praise, but we can't have that. That also serves as a distraction, right? You can pull from those experiences, but ultimately I can't have you sitting here starting to think that you're above somebody else to the left or right of you because of what you've done prior, because really, who cares, right? The enemy's not going to care that you were the D1 athlete, right? None of that stuff matters. So if it doesn't matter to them, it doesn't matter to anybody else. I think that's so powerful, because ego death is something that so many people stray away from. They won't do it because their ego won't allow them to. Right? I was forced to have an ego death when I came off reality television, and everyone told me I wasn't worth a damn. And my ego was destroyed. Best thing that ever happened to me. So in your case, would you say that being a Marine was the best thing that happened to you, or how do you view that experience as a whole?
Oh, hands down. And don't get me wrong, I'm married now, love my wife, greatest decision, have kids. But if I didn't have the Marine Corps, I wouldn't have had anything else. Yeah. Like I was at a stage in my life where it was bad decision, wrong decision, bad decision. If I didn't have like that small glimpse of being like, hey, let me let me go and try to do something else.
Yeah.
And the Marine Corps wasn't willing to take me, I would either be probably prison or dead. And I know that's like super cliche, but that's that's exactly where I would be. I wouldn't have the mindset I have today. I wouldn't have the success in terms of family and friends and job that I have today. I sure as hell wouldn't be a dad of 2 girls. Like the Marine Corps literally saved me. And it's not necessarily an institutional thing, but like the friends that I met there, the leaders I met there, the bad leaders I met there, like made me understand like what not to do as well as like what to do.
Yeah.
That all shaped eventually who I am now. And that's how I go and lead my community. I continuously learn. I try to say I'm a career student. Like there's never a day that goes by that I don't learn from somebody else.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's, if I didn't have the Marine Corps, I don't know if I'd even be here.
I wanted to touch on that. You talked about how there was a point in your life where, you were going down a path that if it wasn't for the Marine Corps, you would have been a completely different person, or potentially in prison, or any other alternative route that's not positive, a positive one. We had discussed this briefly, but when we first met and had the phone conversation, there's a power in a singular conversation, how it can change someone's life. I've had it happen in my life where I've had one person that believed in me when I didn't, and they had a conversation with me and it changed the trajectory of my life. I don't think people realize that even a stranger, or it doesn't have to be a loved one, a friend, family member, it can be a complete stranger that can give you that one conversation that can absolutely change everything. It happened to me. You had mentioned it happened to you as well. Can you share that story about that individual that essentially, changed your pathway? First off, let's talk about where you were at leading up to that point.
You don't want me to give you the background of it?
Yeah, I want you to give me the background that ultimately led you to walk into that room with that individual. Why were you even having that conversation in the first place? What led up to it? And then what was said during that conversation? And then where did it take you from that point forward?
So most people don't know this because they don't ask, but unless you served with me. But I joined the Marine Corps. I did really well from the beginning, graduated boot camp, went on to like the basic infantry school, did really well enough to earn a meritorious promotion. Went to my first infantry unit, which is 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, known as the Magnificent Bastards, badass unit. But at that point, I was almost falling back into what I was in my early childhood, where I was getting all these accolades for doing well in sports, or I used to compete in martial arts and I was beating up grown men. And I was like, I'm doing so well. And I kind of took that high and just flushed it down the toilet. And history often repeats itself. Mm-hmm. And it's exactly what it did with me. As soon as I started doing so well and people started like awarding me for this, I had like the opposite reaction. I don't know if I have at the time, I don't know if it's like, hey, if good things happen to me, I just like to flush them all down the toilet. Like kind of the story of my earlier life, I guess. So I started drinking heavily, started like not doing what I was supposed to do in terms of the Marine Corps. I went home one weekend because I was stationed in California, got completely obliterated all weekend and woke up on, I think it was a Monday morning, and I didn't show back up to work. I was supposed to be back at Camp Pendleton on a Monday morning. Mm-hmm. And I was pretty much like, man, I just fucked up. I can't go back. Like, there's no way I can go back. And so I was now what you would call Article 86. I was unauthorized absence from the Marine Corps. And keep in mind, this would have been like July of 2007. And I joined in January. So we're only talking 7 months here that I went from being on the top of the world, earning the title of a Marine, to being meritorious promoted, to be going to my first infantry unit, to very shortly after that, like being back at rock bottom. Parents eventually found out like, hey, I didn't return. Obviously that's a huge issue. I fled from that, kind of shut that off. Mm-hmm. I was like, well, I just won't talk to you guys then. Mm-hmm. Got in with a bad crowd of people, kind of like I originally did when I was in high school, and just bad decision after another, continued drinking super heavily. And then I had a kind of a come to Jesus moment where I was like, what am I doing? Like, I need to go back. Mm-hmm. But I had that moment, but not really. I didn't really act on it.
Okay.
I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll go back. Maybe I won't. And I think that was, whoever's higher above us was like, hey, you thought about it. I'm making your ass go back. Because sure enough, a few hours later, Scottsdale Police Department knocks on my door. I open the door, like, hey, you Jason Harris? I was like, yes. And they arrested me and were like, hey, you're, I'm unauthorized to be able to be gone from the Marine Corps. I can't remember what the actual term's called. Arrested me, took me down to Maricopa County Jail. A few days later, Marine chasers came, picked me up. Pretty much like, what the and I was no shirt, shorts, and prison shoes. Like police officers didn't give me a chance to get dressed. And so they were pretty upset, but men shackles, threw me on a plane, flew back to Camp Pendleton, California. My unit was just finishing up some training. So when they came back, I sat down with the head chain of command there. I hadn't met them previously. And he pretty much was just like, I don't know you. You don't know me. Like, tell me why I shouldn't just kick you out of the Marine Corps right now. And I kind of said I had that come to Jesus moment before I actually, was taken back. I was pretty much spilled my beans. Like, hey, like I was in a bad place before I joined the Marine Corps. Like, I don't know like what I would have had been doing. I joined the Marine Corps to change myself. I was on the trajectory to do that. I was doing really well. I had these awards from, my earlier schools, which in reality now don't mean anything. But at the time it was like, oh, cool. I've only been in for 7 months and I've made all of this success in terms of like a resume.
Yeah.
And pretty much spilled my heart out to this guy whose name's Captain Ryan. He was a former reconnaissance officer. He was our new company commander.
Okay.
And he pretty much just like looked me in the face. It was like, okay, like I believe you. I'm going to take a chance on you. Like pretty much like, don't fuck me. And he went up to our battalion commander, who's a colonel, and he stuck his neck out for me. He was like, hey, like normally I would have been processed out of the Marine Corps other than honorable discharge, probably spent some time in the Marine Corps jail, and then kicked out, act like I was never in the Marine Corps at all, pretty much.
Yeah.
And he asked me if I wanted to stay in. I said yes. And not sure exactly what I said to try to fluff up the words to be like, hey, won't let you down. I'll do really well, this, that, and the other. Mm-hmm. And a guy I didn't know, and he didn't know me other than what I'm telling him right now.
Yeah.
He was like, you know what? I'm going to take a chance on you. And he did. And I lived up to my words. I rapidly, got back into training, caught up on everything that I had been missing. I went through a couple higher level leadership schools at a very early age in terms of like Marine Corps age. Mm-hmm. And I kind of shot up through the ranks, meritorious promoted, solid awards, squad, had the best squad in our unit at one point. Was holding billets above my rank. Like I had this driving force now, like, hey, this person entrusted in me after I had showed no reason to.
Yeah.
Like, and I know I wasn't like, I was doing it to not like let that choice go down, but ultimately it was like me. Like I was like finally digging deep inside of like my heart, my brain. It was like, there's no more like fucking around. Like mm-hmm. It's game time now. Like you made a choice, like in lack of better words, like stop being a little bitch and do whatever you need to do to be successful.
Yeah. And
don't be wrong, I still had ups and downs and times I got back on my high horse and got knocked back down, but then I learned from it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, like, okay, this is what it is. And there's still mistakes I've made to this day that I'm friends with those people now and that were in charge of me. And it's like, I'm like, thank you for being so hard on me because now it made me grow and be a better leader when I got to that stage. And,
yeah.
And it was just a huge, I wasn't even changing the chapters. Like I closed one book and opened up a new book, all thanks to the confidence of one guy.
Yeah. And I love that when you originally, shared that with me, I think it's just important for people to understand that because your words do matter. The words that you choose to say to not only others, but to yourself, what you say internally, I mean, can make or break your forward trajectory. You say that you're a loser, you'll become a loser if you're not already one. If you say that you're a winner and you say that every day, you'll eventually win, right? Sometimes we don't have those words though internally, and so we need somebody externally to see something that we don't see at the time. And like I said, I had a similar situation with one of my coaches in high school that if it wasn't for that one conversation, I'd have never played college ball, which would have never led to me going to the NFL, which never would have led to me then getting into medical sales because they love their former athletes, which never would have led to me then becoming going on the Bachelorette because they liked what I did prior with being an athlete in medical sales and so on and so forth. Right. So it was a domino effect. I'm curious so it sounds that you turned over the new leaf, you found, you were very successful in the Marine Corps, and you made a name for yourself. Did you ever wrap up your identity in being a Marine? And if so, was it hard to leave? Whenever the final day when you decided to say, okay, next chapter of my life, did it feel as though a part of you was dying? And I ask this question because this happens a lot with athletes. Their whole life, they dedicate a lot of their life to playing a sport. And then when it abruptly ends, it's like, well, that was so much of who I was. Now I got to fill this void. Now what am I? Did you ever do that, or did you separate the job from your identity?
So that was definitely my identity.
Okay.
For sure. For 11 straight years, like through and through, on weekends. It sounds insane, but like me and my buddy, like Adam, we would talk about like war fighting tactics and like this, that, and like that's what we did. Like that's what we did. We went out to the bar. All we did was talking about Marine Corps stuff, and you never really understood it until like my wife and her friends came along and were just like, we have no idea what we're talking about. Like it's no fun for us.
Yeah.
So it was 100% my identity. But as I kind of understood what that identity meant to me, it wasn't about me. It was about everybody else.
Okay.
Because once you become a leader in the Marine Corps, it's not by choice. It's because you earned it. Like you are like either you sink or swim. At some point, you either fall off and you get told that you're no longer needed and you get pushed out,
okay,
or you've shown that you're ready to lead people and lead people in the most hellish way possible, which is war. Like war is hell. Like there's no pretty part about it. Like, and they're entrusting in you at whatever phase in terms of your leadership, that you can care for everybody. And it's unique, but in the Marine Corps, you're not just responsible for your team, like at work. If they have issues with marriage, if they have issues with pay, you have a new person come in and go buy a car at a 20% interest rate. Like my responsibility is going down to that car dealership and be like, no, we're not doing this. Like you are a leader in their life.
Interesting.
And so once you understand that and understand that, and it comes with a great burden, but in a burden that I will always be willing to carry, you stop thinking about what's best for you and what's best for your guys. Mm-hmm. So like, as I continued on in my like leadership in the Marine Corps, my time in the Marine Corps, when I came to the decision that I was going to leave, I came to the decision that I was going to take all that and then do it in the civilian world. I didn't know how yet. I was like, you know what? I always wanted to own a gym. I actually even wrote it in like a 7th grade book. Like I'm going to own a gym and have a red Dodge Viper or something ridiculous like that. But I knew I was going to take what I was able to do successfully in the Marine Corps, mm-hmm, and go and do it to what we call like civilians.
Okay.
So it was my identity, but my goal was to shift that identity with the same principles, the same leadership style, the same like morals and values, and somehow create an impact on the civilian side of things.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen like that, like I thought it would. I thought I would get out and I'd be rocking and rolling. I'd be the success story of when people get out of the Marine Corps, get out of the military in general, because most times it's not successful. You get out and you lose your sense of purpose. You get out and you no longer have the cohesion, the brotherhood, the friendship. You no longer have like, hey, let's get up in the morning and go do this. You're like, no, maybe you're a college student or you're working, some BS job that doesn't really have the same alignments that you have. So most of my friends get out and either failed or they, the ultimate sacrifice for, they take their own life because they just don't know what to do. So I was like, I'm going to be the anomaly in that. And it was not at first. I've progressed into that,
yeah,
luckily. But I took that identity that was me, and I wanted to turn it into me, but in a civilian fashion. And once I really found my new purpose, which is really the same purpose I had in the Marine Corps. I just had to transfer it over. That's what kind of allowed me to find myself again, because it took a while, and it was hard on my wife. It was hard on our marriage, because you go from, like a professional athlete, you go from being this tier 1 person to, when you get out, it's kind of like, it's like chasing that high. Like, you don't get that high every day anymore. You don't get to hit that dude and fumble. Like you don't have that anymore. So now you have to find some other fix to create that and cultivate that for you. And it takes some time to find it. Some people find it right away. But I'd probably say 90% of my friends that I served with over the course of over a decade were unsuccessful for the first 3, 4, 5, and even now, years later. Like, they haven't found that thing that's like, yes, like I matter. Like I matter like I did when I was 18. I remember, like most people, we're kids. We go in 18 to 22. That is the average length of a Marine experience. You have 4 years, and then you get out and you're chasing those 4 years for the rest of your life.
Oh, dude, I'm getting chills, because what I really love in getting to have conversations such as this is there's so many parallels. I'll never know what it's like to be a Marine, but interestingly enough, a lot of the mindset that we were taught as Division I athletes came from the Marines, or Army or wherever. Like we had the saying, "Battle tested, war ready." Which I assume we took from
Naval Academy.
Okay, yeah. See, so they had it infiltrated, like all throughout our training. But that same issue persisted in my life, where when I left football, I was chasing a dopamine high. The biggest high I ever had, I'll even get chills when I talk about it, is I think about running out of the Mizzou tunnel and there's all this smoke and I can hear Welcome to the Jungle playing, and I run out, and the second I get from the other side of the smoke screen, you see 75,000 people going ballistic. I see Truman the Tiger swinging his tail on top of the fire truck as the sirens are blaring. And I'm getting chills right now. Like I could never find that for so long. In fact, to this day, I still feel like there's not many things that made me feel that way. The cameras flying overhead with that, millions of people are going to watch the game. It's primetime TV. And you don't forget it.
Never.
You never forget it. And so you think you can just move on, but the memory of it's not enough. You chase after what's something that can give me that dopamine release again. Did you, as you seem to have found your way, you said fairly quicker than some of your peers. Did you ever find yourself seeking dopamine in a negative manner right away? Did you go through a period of that where you're like, this is probably not the best way to go about this, but I feel like I need to do this to just cope with the fact that I came from this level of dopamine release to this crash down effect? Me personally, I did that through partying and VIP experiences and traveling and a little bit of drug use, with weed or other drugs. Like I felt that I almost had to taper myself down, because I went from here to just, and I was like, whoa, I'm having this withdrawal effect. Did you ever find yourself in that position where you were kind of chasing certain avenues that were dopamine releasing, but negative?
I mean, I wouldn't say, in terms of like negative on like my body, like, no, like I'd gone out of that phase of like alcoholism. Almost every Marine's probably an alcoholic your first few years, right? Like that's we were born in a bar. Like that's just kind of what we do. Like we consume copious amounts of alcohol.
And real quick, why is that? Is that just is it a coping mechanism?
I think so.
Like a numbing agent?
Yeah, it's like a bonding thing. It's
bonding as well. Okay.
Like we go, like all of the Marine Corps is one of the very few branches that like we literally throw a weekend party every year on our birthday.
Oh, really?
November 10th, or around that weekend, depending on what day that obviously lands. Like you're in casinos in Vegas, you're in casinos in Temecula, you're in downtown San Diego Gaslamp District. Like it was like it's in our blood. Like we were found. Continental Congress stamped it in Tun Tavern, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, back in 1775. Like we were created by clanging beers. And so It's almost like, it's so stupid to say, but it's kind of like saying, oh, if you were in a frat, you had to drink. Like you didn't have to, But you kind of did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you really have a fucking choice. Like, okay, freshman, get your ass over here. You're chugging a 40 of Steel Reserve. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
That's kind of how the Marine Corps was.
Gotcha.
And you can call it hazing, you can call it whatever you want. I call it training. Like it's like, there's things that you did that bonded you together with other people. And it just so happened to involve lots of alcohol.
Gotcha. Okay.
But like, that's very early. And I would say in my career. And so when I got out when I was 30. So like, I didn't really, that was kind of behind me. I know 30 is not that old, but in terms of the Marine Corps,
You could feel like it some days.
you're a freaking grandpa.
Yeah.
Like people came and looked at me like I'm one of the very few people back then that had tattoos. Cause after 2007, it was illegal. Like you weren't allowed to have sleeves.
Oh, really?
So when people saw me, they were like, "Oh, dude, who's this crusty ass bald?" And I was, "Oh, you bald? Like, who's this dude?" Right?
Yeah.
And so, like in the Marine Corps, like you're in. Remember, most people stay 4 years, so you're in more than 4 years. Like you're end up being this crusty older like infantry dude, and I was infantry through and through.
Yeah.
So like it's just a different dynamic.
Okay.
So like I kind of grew out of the partying or, I can't do drugs in the Marine Corps, but like imagine like in college, like that drug phase.
Yeah.
And when I pivoted to get out, like I had one thing in mind is like, hey, I have to provide for my family, right? It was just me and my wife at the time, but she was working, but I was the main provider for our home and for our bills and our way of life.
Yeah. And
so my initial thought was like, hey, I made X amount in the Marine Corps. I need to make that day one that I'm getting out.
Okay.
So I got 3 or 4 jobs right away. I think I had like 8 W-2s my first year out of the Marine Corps. I was just like, I got to grind. We had bought a house in Scottsdale and like the Arcadia area. Like I need to pay the bills. I need to make sure like I'm staying true to like what I told my wife when I got married. Like I'll protect us. I'll provide for us. Yeah. And it's like, that was kind of my mentality, but that was my chase of dopamine. Like I need to be fulfilled in providing. But what I wasn't providing is I wasn't providing my wife a husband. I would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I would go to a gym and I would train for 4 hours. I'd come home and take a 30-minute nap on the floor and I'd go to another gym and train. I'd take a nap, then I'd drive across the city to Boeing. I used to work at their Global Security Operations Center and I worked there from 3 to 10 p.m. So I'd be gone from 4 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday, maybe sometimes Monday through Saturday, just thinking like, hey, what I'm doing is right. Like this is what I need. Mm-hmm. So I didn't give myself an opportunity to feel, to like take a step back and be like, what are you doing? And I didn't. And I would say this is probably my emotional like disconnect, because I'm only happy or sad, or sorry, I'm only happy or angry. Mm-hmm. There was no filler. There was no like understanding of like, hey, no, like I need to be a little bit more emotional intelligent and read off my wife, even if she's not saying things, because she's like proud that I'm working so hard to provide for us. But I was failing like drastically as a husband. And it really took, we might talk about it, another huge turn of events a few months later for me to like actually take a step back and being like, oh, now you have time to think. You need to fix it. And that's ultimately where my dopamine crash hit. And then I had to figure out how to fix it, because I knew I couldn't just work it away. I couldn't just I was running from my choices, running from my feelings by working, 15, 16 hours a day.
Yeah. So yeah, I was going to ask, as far as the catalyst, what, and you just alluded to it. Did you just have a feeling that you weren't being the best husband for your wife, or was there a kind of a come to Jesus moment, or a discussion that was had, or what was it that eventually had you take that step back and go, all right, yeah, this isn't going to work. Like, not the way I'm doing it currently. So
unfortunately, it wasn't my choice. Like, I wish I could say, hey guys, like, yep, I manned up and was like, no, you're a bad husband. Taking this back to when I was gone from the Marine Corps for a little amount of time and I was drinking heavily and bad choices, that bad choice led to a few DUIs that when I did go back into the Marine Corps, I never took care of. So eventually that caught back up with me. I was working at Boeing and I got put up for a promotion. Yeah. And with that promotion came a top top secret clearance. I already had a secret clearance, so I was for the most part okay. But during that top secret clearance, they ran just a in-depth, like super in-depth background check, and very first thing popped up, felony warrant for a DUI back in 2008. Mm-hmm. And this is halfway through 2017. So we're, almost 10 years later. I get a call from my boss. My dad's in town. We're building a garage at our house so I can put a gym in it so I can train out of my house. And I was like, hey, we're going to put you on administrative leave. You failed a background check. Like you have just let you know, you have a felony warrant out for your arrest. And I was like, okay. And then like instantly I was like, DUI, why am I so stupid? So I reached out to my father-in-law who he lives in Arizona. He knew a few people. He put me in contact with a lawyer. Lawyer went in, heard my whole spiel. I've been in the Marine Corps the last 11 years. Like this happened my first year in the Marine Corps. I didn't know at the time, but they didn't give you a ticket. They mail it to you. They mailed it to my mom's home of record, which she no longer lived there. So long story short, like I never actually got the paperwork to know like, hey, I didn't go to court.
Yeah.
I knew I got DUI, clearly. The Marine Corps knew I had DUI. Like yeah. Scottsdale PD knew I was in the Marine Corps kind of thing. But nonetheless, that's local.
You never had it though. Like, I mean, you never had those papers handed to you. Yeah. And so you just moved on with your life thinking like,
exactly.
I was like absolved somehow.
They knew I was in the Marine Corps. This is like the old school, like, hey, he already went to the Marine Corps. Well, we'll cut this for him.
Yeah,
And honestly, I didn't even think about it. Yeah, I moved past it. I was like, you know what? I had this choice. Let me run with it. Mm-hmm. Long story short, I end up hitting a plea deal for like they wanted to give me like an F3 felony, which means like I never had my gun rights back and never my voting rights back. So I cut a plea deal for an F6, which is like a felony undesignated. That mandated like 4 months in incarceration, fees, fines, lost driving privileges, all that kind of stuff. So ultimately, like I just got out of the Marine Corps. I'm back with my wife for the first time in like a year. Like we're trying to build this together. I'm working like a crazy person. And then boom, gone 4 months.
Yeah.
So now no job, no income, right? Like my wife's now alone again after I finally like came back from being out of the Marine Corps. And I'm in a spot where I'm just like, why am I here? I'm in with people that from all walks of life, which I respect everybody, but for lack of better words, I shouldn't have been from where I was at in my life. Like I shouldn't be there. And I kind of had that mentality at first. And I was like, no, like you deserve to be here. Like you fucked up. Like now you're paying back what you did. Yeah. Maybe 10 years ago, but like you still made that mistake. So once I kind of got over that woe is me, I really sat back and I was like, okay, I have 4 months to stare at the ceiling and like figure out what I want, like what I want in life. Like how can I take that plan that I wanted and switch it back over to the real world? Like how can I start like leap from the day I get out of this hellhole? Like, how can I be productive? Like, how can I go back in and be a productive member of society? Not only productive, but like succeed in every facet. Mm-hmm. And I mean, being a husband, a future dad, like, what do I want? And so that was literally the first time probably in my entire life that I like sat there and straight reflected. I wrote a lot. I read more books than I've ever read in my entire life. I studied for the GMAT, which is what you take in order to like go to school for your MBA. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I have this time. I need to build what I'm going to do. So when I get out, there's no more chances. I was taking every chance away. Like this is the only chance you got. Yeah. And when I was put up with that in the Marine Corps and I got that one chance, I did really well. So I was kind of like trying to re-put myself in the same circumstances.
Interesting. Okay.
Like, hey, you were a shitbag at one time. Someone believed in you. You made something of it. Okay. I was a shitbag for drinking and driving. Thank God I didn't like hurt anybody. You're gonna get through it. You're gonna get through do your time. Now do something with it. And so that was the time that I kind of sat back and was like, you know what? I'm going to make a community like we had in the Marine Corps, but with my neighbors. Like, I don't want, no offense, but like, I don't want professional athletes. Like, I don't want people that have aspirations to go there. I want everyday people that are waking up every morning, grinding to be the best mom, dad, brother, sister, boss, leader at work. I want those people, and I want to build a place to cultivate adversity and winning, like mental resilience building company that these people come in and, for lack of better words, put them through hell. So when they leave, they know they can do anything.
Yeah.
If they're a lawyer, they can go and stand in front of a judge and stand there like astutely and confidently, because they voluntarily like put themselves through shit that people most times don't want to. And that was really the true start of anarchy.
Yeah.
And anarchy is actually, and most people are like, oh, it's American flag anarchy. Like you're not very smart. Like anarchy was a unit I was with in the Marine Corps. We were nicknamed Anarchy Alpha.
Okay.
And it was probably the best group of guys personally and professionally that I've ever been with. Still talk to them a lot to this day. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to build that. I'm going to build that Anarchy Alpha, that anarchy team again. No one else liked us because like how we operated, we did things very uniquely. We're very successful, kind of went against the grain. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do that in our community. And I'm going to try as hard as I can to make people better, ultimately making me better. Because when I was leading people, I was the best person I could be. Now I can lead my family better. Now I can lead my kids better. And that has just snowball effect. And as much as things still get thrown at us and shit hits the fan, like we're good. I have no stress anymore. Like I know I can get through this. I've been through it in A, B, and C. Like, okay, let's pivot. Let's do this. COVID happened. Cool. Don't care. Let's pivot. Let's continue to make a way to impact people. And then I'll continue to way to like, let me grow and be the best me that I can be. And I firmly believe when I'm my best, I can help my wife be her best. I can help my kids be her best. Everyone around me can be at their best because it's infectious.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so cool. I mean, the things that you recreated, what you had in the Marines, and you talk about, you don't want the people that potentially have the egos. You want the everyday individuals coming in here and seeing it as a level playing field, so that way that there aren't any distractions, and then everyone can get to work and put in there that because I'm imagining the training sessions that you provide at Anarchy are probably very challenging.
It's different. Yeah.
Different, but very challenging. I have to imagine, because to get to your point, like I want you to be able to walk out of here and this be the hardest thing you do today, or one of the hardest. Therefore, if you're like, if I can accomplish this and overtake this, what can't I, accomplish in life? And so it's extremely powerful. I want to ask, I'm feeling compelled to ask this question, and this is probably coming from a place of selfishness. I'm a single man, and I can't, as you tell your story, I can't help but think, your wife, how incredible she must be and how much you must value her. As you had this DUI hit you 10 years later, and you just came back after being away for some time. She's still by your side. You come back, you then have to go deal with that. She still stands by your side. And you come back. You're somebody who always found a way to make things happen. And you were succeeding at your highest points and finding all these accolades and getting things done. You get out of the Marine Corps and you're taking in all these jobs and you're finding success and you're making a way. What does your wife, mean to you as far as like, what does she, I gotta imagine like that it's like you couldn't do it without her. I mean, what does really she provide to you that, I mean, just blows your mind that you're like, man, like I couldn't imagine doing it any other way. The selfish aspect of me, or reason I asked that question, is because I really do believe deep down in my heart, I'd be better off with somebody in a loving relationship, building together, than the alternative is me running around single man, just chaos, get dragged over here. My eyesight goes over here. So for the single people, maybe like, what is that relationship? I mean, what are you most grateful for with your wife?
I mean, you just said it. You said building together. And I would say most relationships that are either like, oh, I'm 30, like my eggs are getting old, or I'm not gonna be able to have a kid this much longer, like, and you just go and chase it. Oftentimes you forget, like, we're together. It's not an I, it's an us. It's like, it's a we. And luckily for me, I found that very, very early. But understanding, like, and so when that does happen for you, with you already saying that, like, you'll know. But for me, it's, think about you met another person that is putting their ultimate trust and confidence in your ability, blank. Like, there's no like ability to do this or ability to do that, or like, oh yeah, you'd be really good at this. It's a blanketed statement. Like, they have trust and confidence of everything that you will do. And she's been loyal for 16 years. And I don't mean like, oh, she doesn't cheat on me. Like, in terms of, like, to me, like, she went through three deployments with me. She, back at home, like, never had to deal with finances before. And I'm like, hey, I'm gone. Here's all of our bank accounts. Here's all of our bills. Like, your turn. And didn't miss a step. Like, learned it, talked about it. Like, and now she still does it. She, like, now that I gave her, I didn't give her the power. Like, I handed that power over. Like, she still is like, nope, I do the bills. I do this. And so it's funny to see, like, that grow. But ultimately it's you, when you make a decision for yourself, you're like, okay, like, I can do this. But imagine as soon as you thought that and you said it out loud, you had another person say yes.
Like, instant, like, validation.
Oh, yes, yes, you can. Oh, I think I can make it to the NFL. And then nothing. Imagine as soon as you said it, yes, you can. Let's do this together. Let's build that together. Like, yeah, you can. Like, I'm scared that you're going to leave these jobs that are paying our bills, and you're going to go start your own company. Like, I'm scared, but, like, yes, let's do it. Like, we can do this. And we went from 1,000 square feet to 4,000 square feet. And it's like, hey, yeah, let's take the risk. Like, we can do this. We can go and take that company to this. Okay, hey, we're leasing. Can we afford to buy a building in Scottsdale and invest to maybe give something to our kids? Like, hey, let's go and take that risk together and buy a building. And now we have our own building, no landlord. Like, we make the rules, so to say. It's just that instant, like, it's not even necessarily gratification, but that instant acceptance that no matter what she does or what I do, like, we're going to do it together.
We'll support too.
100%. We're going to say no together. We're going to say yes together. It's never, oh, you say no, I say yes, so we're doing it. It's like, hey, let's communicate. Let's break down barriers. Let's take risk. Really, like, you need to understand that there's going to be some give and take. You need to be willing to be that with somebody. Like, you have to have the ability to make choices that are best for the two of you rather than you as a single person. Compromise for us is the name of the game.
Yeah.
And Kendall will obviously tell you, like, you compromise more than me, but, like, that is, like, we just hit our 12-year anniversary,
congrats,
right?
man.
Like, all of her friends, when we were getting married, were like red flag city. Like, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Her mom, only person she didn't want her daughters to date, Jason Harris. Like, and it's factual statements. Like, to this day, I still bust her balls about it. Like, and we understood, like, what we were going to do is always we. It was like, there was no longer like, hey, like, I want out, you want out. Like, no, there's no choice. Like, this, we're building the empire together.
Yeah.
And I think having that trust and confidence, her having that in me, knowing, like, hey, yeah, I might be going through some shit, but I'm gonna come out on above. I'm gonna come out on top.
Yeah.
And we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that together.
Yeah. I'm sold. Yeah. I mean, because how many times, I can think about it in my own life, how many times have I faced a situation where I thought, should I leave my job right now? Should I take on this new opportunity? And then the next voice I hear is often the one inside my head. When you're a single person, the next voice often is what you hear inside. That's the next voice. And that's oftentimes what stops somebody from taking action, is that voice that goes, whoa, why'd you do that? You're making 6 figures.
Yeah, what are you doing?
What are you doing? Like, it was for what? So you're running a risk here, right? Like, you don't have to do this. Like, just stay where you're at. It's comfortable.
Oh.
But if the next voice I hear is somebody else that goes, yeah, we'll figure it out. It doesn't even, now all of a sudden I don't even have time for that voice to intercept the message, or the thought and try to change it. Because I'll have to, oftentimes in our head, I mean, we have our ego that's trying to protect us. It's a survival method. So it goes, well, I don't know. Like, why would we step out of the comfort zone? We got a good thing going here. But somebody that believes in you is able to say, yeah, sure. If that's what you're feeling, let's do it. And that's one of the many powers of being in an incredibly healthy, supportive relationship, is that, just like you said, you throw something out there, and before your ego can beat you to it, that other person goes, yeah, let's do it.
Yep.
And then you go, all right, really? Yeah, let's do it. Why not?
What's the worst thing that can happen?
What's the worst that can happen?
Yep.
We got each other.
We fail? Cool.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good that you failed. It's like Jocko's big thing. Like, oh, something bad happened? Good. Like, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Like, and just adapting that.
Yeah.
And I'd probably say that the Marine Corps, going through that adversity while we're in there, like, also helped, like grind us and like put us together.
Yeah.
Like having that ability to go through ups and downs together in that stage.
Yeah.
Like built resiliency for us as a couple. Because although military spouses aren't like actively in the military, they're going through all the stuff on the home front, like, which is oftentimes way worse than when we're deployed. We have one thing to think about, and it's bringing our guys home and putting bad people down, while at home, they're taking care of everything. They're making sure everything's taken care of, so that when we get done with our patrol cycle, our work cycle, that we have a little bit of like R&R, that I don't have to get on and be like, oh, I have no phone bill because I didn't pay my payment, or hey, I just lost the house because my credit card was expired and I didn't do this, that, and that. Like, they are taking care of all of that. So I think that it ultimately grew both of us, for sure.
Yeah.
And you can do that in any aspect of relationship. We were just forced to do it dynamically when I was in the service.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, teamwork, you learned it in the Marines, and you realize that, life is not meant to be lived alone. I truthfully believe that. I think there's always exceptions. Somebody can do it, but what's most satisfying is being able to take the ones you love with you,
100%.
On that journey. And you need them, because there's at points where you feel like you can't believe in yourself. And so you need that person, that individual you spoke about earlier, or now it's your wife. And for me, it was like my coach, and then eventually it'll be my wife, I hope. So, Jason, you're incredibly inspiring. You're very well spoken. The way that you explained everything today, you helped also me, and I think other individuals, understand that the Marines you humanized it. You showed that there's a brotherhood. You showed that you guys, you're not just these machines. But you learn so many valuable life lessons that you can carry beyond it. I mean, you've given me a greater appreciation. I already had so much respect for people that serve their country in general, but to hear some of these things that, you all did, and how and it's really insightful, and it helps me understand that, like, oh, wow, like, look at how, and I saw this with football too, but I think most people don't realize that, some people told me, hey, football is just a game. No, it's not. It's not. Life's a game as well, but it's not just football. It's not just the Marines, right? Like, what it taught you is it molded you into what you are today. And now you're impacting the lives of hundreds, if not thousands now, that are coming through, your gym, and then that they go off though, and they get in better shape. You forge their minds, and now they're impacting people in their life. They're all benefiting from what it is you've created. So, Jason, if people want to get involved with you and be a part of what it is you're building, where's the best place that they can find you?
We're social media. You can look me up personally, Jason Harris. On the business side of things, we kind of have 3 tiers to our Anarchy family. We have Anarchy Fitness, which is like an adult program. We have Anarchy Kids, which is like youth program. And then we have Anarchy Combatives, which is like reality, real life self-defense, and like firearms training. And we kind of wrap all under the Anarchy name. But all those are Anarchy Fitness, Anarchy Kids, and Anarchy Combatives, that we're really just trying to bring like-minded people together from all aspects of life. I don't care what side of the aisle you sit on, who you vote for, gay, straight. Like we want everybody. We want to show that we can come together us apart from our differences and literally grow as human beings and hopefully impact the greater good. Like you said it, like, hey, if I can impact one person and that person goes and impacts somebody else and we start to influence, and like, that's how we, the people, came around in the first place. Like this country is so great because of us, not because of our government or the people we elect. Like it's the people. And I hope we can at some point realize that how powerful we are together when we're united and influence each other in a positive way.
Beautifully said. I couldn't have said it any better. So Jason, thank you so much for coming in today and having this discussion. It's impacted me and it certainly will impact others. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.